Welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, welcome to the Stream of Truth. I am Dr. Tassel Faith Shamebrook,
And I'm Sean Kelly.
and today we are talking about releasing your inner critic.
Yes.
And we had some revelations about this over the past weekend through some relational interactions between us. Do you want to kind of
Sure.
head up?
Yeah, so I realized that there were certain types of interactions that Tassel and I were having that like I seemed to misinterpret a lot, like sort of place a lot of blame on myself in situations. Um and I realized that really what I'm doing is kind of choosing to look at a side of the issue that is a reason for me to blame myself for something. It's like a way for me to punish myself, or a way for me to, um, yeah, basically just hurt myself in some way, or attack myself. Good morning, Jamie. Thanks for joining. Um, so I realized like it was so subtle, kind of sneaky how it happens. Um, I realized like I don't even notice really I'm doing it. Um, and it's it's only in certain types of things, like, but basically if certain things come up, where I have an opportunity to feel criticized, it seems like my mind tends to go, oh, here's another reason you suck. Here's
Mm.
another reason you're not good enough. Here's another reason. And it's, I didn't really realize um, how much that was still going on, I guess. Um, I think most of the time, I'm able to notice that and go, no, that's okay. I'm not, it's fine. But a couple times lately, I didn't really catch it. I didn't really stop it. And so today we thought talking about the inner critic, kind of what that is, maybe a little bit, or what our experience of it has been, and how we deal with it. Um, Part of it I think is just noticing we do it. Once we notice that we do it, I think most people, if they think about whenever they get upset about anything that someone else is doing, like, or somebody else is talking about something and they find it hard, like they find it hard to hear that, a lot of times what's going on is they feel like they're being criticized or whatever. And then we have a tendency to kind of lash out, maybe, or to project it and say, why are they doing this to me? And then I think reframing the conversations helps as well. So we talked about, we're basically separating the experiences but going through it together. So so we can talk about that as well.
Yeah. Would it be okay if we gave the actual example to sort of flesh out what we're saying?
I don't remember what the actual example was.
So, the actual example was on Saturday, I had felt sort of a lot of stress throughout the day. And by the time we went to bed Saturday night,
Right. Okay.
I was not feeling super great. Um, and then you could sense that, and you asked me, "Are you upset?" And I just was very transparent, and I described, "Oh, like this was stressful for me. I'm wondering if maybe we could possibly do things differently going forward." And I'm not sure that I related my experiences totally in the highest and best way, but I was just pretty transparent that I had been stressed.
Yeah. Yeah. The way that I remember it, and like my memory of it's probably a little bit skewed because of how I experienced it. So the way I remember it was that you had some various things that went on through the day that you didn't really like how they happened. Primarily, you just wanted to be more involved in things together.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But when you brought it up, it to me sort of felt uh, like it was just pointing at all the flaws in the day, sort of like. And I guess in this area too, I should say that I had been trying to do this well, and so it felt very stingy to me, I guess, because it would kind of be like if Tassel got her hair done all nice and really liked it, or like I asked her to do her hair a certain way and then she did it and I'm like, I don't really like it. It's kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's how it felt for me anyway. It is sort of felt and just from my past experience, that's a very, when that happens, it's very hopeless for me. Like uh it's it's like, why do we bother? Even why do humans try to help or impress each other in any way? They're unimpressible, these people. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And just to flesh it out maybe a little bit more, and we're going to do a stream on this topic in general. It was, so I'm here in Canada with Sean, and over the weekend we were with his kids. And yeah, I was sort of wanting to feel more partnered with how we figured out the day with the kids. And you were trying to do so. And I was still feeling like a bit of gaps around it. And yeah, so that's what happened. And what I ended up sort of talking about was that one person can have sort of a negative experience, and it doesn't necessarily mean the other person has done anything wrong. And I kind of kept coming back to my experience as a marriage and family therapist with blended families, that there are so many things to kind of figure out, and potential stressors and communication, and there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of layers. So I think I was landing on the situation can be challenging. Everybody's doing their best. I think you're doing a great job. I think I'm trying to do a great job. There are still things that can be uncomfortable that maybe together we can talk about and possibly partner in a different way or whatever. But doesn't mean anyone's doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that inner critic has to be activated.
Yeah, that's sort of what I realized. It's partly because I hadn't. It's mostly because those types of conversations have not been that way for me
In
in the
previous
past.
relationships, or
Yeah, just with people in the past.
yeah,
People don't
yeah,
see the world that way usually.
right,
Um,
right. Yeah, often a human will have a difficult experience and then possibly blame someone else for the experience,
right.
rather than just possibly seeing, oh, there might be something going on within me, or just the situation itself is difficult. And
Yeah.
this, I'll just quickly say, this was one of the takeaways I got in my training in marriage and family therapy, was that we can externalize situations. Situations are challenging, and we can come together as the family members to move through the situations, but not to blame each other. Just some situations are tricky. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Um, I think the challenge is that if you've had experiences like mine, you're not used to having that space of, it's not your fault. I'm just saying this is challenging. Like that's not normal. So
Yes.
when it comes up, the immediate sort of reaction is, oh, they're criticizing me. They're telling me these various things that I'm doing wrong. And they may be, to a degree, suggesting things could be better, right? Like they are criticizing you a little bit, but they're not trying to say that you're doing anything wrong necessarily. So, um,
Yeah.
it's
At least for me, I didn't feel, I don't know, who knows?
if
Maybe I was criticizing. I think ideally we move through a situation and we just notice, oh, if we shifted it a little bit, this might work a little bit better. It's just like a learning curve, ideally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still do see that as criticism. Like, I don't think you can make it not criticism just because it's nice. It's like it's not like it's not like abrasive, or it doesn't have to be. It's when I receive it incorrectly and I receive it as in its harsher sense, that's sort of the issue.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because I think the word choice we use may reflect just how we are receiving it. Like, for instance, we could possibly receive it as just feedback. Oh, we did this, and this is sort of the feedback that we're getting about it, which seems a little more neutral. So I think our word choice might possibly reflect, our
I see.
own the way we receive it.
So I see it a little differently. I like, if you change the name of a rose, it's still a rose. Like, the thing is what it is. And when somebody's expressing, I do not like this, there's no way to not call that judgment. There's no way to say this is not judgment. It is to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It,
I think
it doesn't mean it's not constructive.
I think there's a lot of nuances here. And I think, to me, I might see it as discernment rather than judgment, or preferences. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. I think what matters is how are each one of us experiencing it, and maybe how do we want to experience it? And are there ideal ways to communicate these things? And are there ideal ways to receive these things?
I also think, yeah. No, I think you're right. I think I have a hard time seeing it as discernment is an interesting way to try to frame it. For me, discernment, is like, it's still sort of judgment, right? We have to discern, we have to evaluate. This is better than this, or right? We're judging in that. We have we actually have to judge to even perceive. So judgment is like a natural component of the separation that just has to occur. So during the separation, but so I'm not saying, when I say that it's judgment or criticism, I'm not trying to say that it shouldn't be done or anything. I'm just trying to say that it seems like I've sort of built up a blanket kind of response and not really honoring the varying spectrums of what judgment could be, right? So, like you said, discernment is still judgment, but it's like a lighter, we're just discerning what we think would be best for the relationship or the whatever we're doing, right? We're trying to discern, which is still judgment. We're prettying it up and making it nicer, and it's lighter than like judgment, right? It's lighter, but it still is judgment. It's just a lighter forming of choosing what you prefer, which is judgment. So it's like, at least this is how I see it. And it's not super important. And I'm not trying to say judgment's a problem in this area. Like Tassel said, discernment of what we enjoy versus what we don't enjoy, what feels harmonious versus what isn't, is really important. So it becomes, I think for me, a touchy subject, just because what happens is I treat almost all judgment, if it's negative judgment, I almost treat all of it the same, which is stop it. Just stop.
Yeah.
Right?
And what I want to jump in to say is, for instance, in this situation, when families are blending, there's usually going to be an older way, a habitual, you might even say unconscious way of doing things. And then, new people are added to the mix, new things are happening. And the system is looking to reach a homeostasis again, but with new people involved. So the way I see it, I understand that you're kind of seeing it through the lens of judgment. I don't really see it that way. I see it through the lens of a system that now has extra components in it looking to reach a new homeostasis, a new harmony. And the way to do that is to get feedback from the members involved who are creating the system. So I just see it a bit differently. I just see it as there's an old system, an old way of doing things, and then there's a new system. And how do you reach a new homeostasis or harmony? And you do that through feedback and discernment.
Yes, no, I agree with all that you're saying. That's kind of my point, is like, in order to navigate human level relationships, there's some level of discernment is going to be applied, some level of choosing, expressing preference, and doing these things is generally going to be done. I do believe that concept will fall away, but it'll be many years from now. I think that's really the issue, though, is just when you have someone like myself who has a really extreme response to, I think part of it is because I recognize myself as a divine sovereign being. And when another is telling me what I'm doing is not good enough in some way, or not what they really want or whatever, I have this immediate feeling, it always starts this way for me, of, so then do what you want. Like, it has nothing to do with me, what you want. It, what other people want of me is none of my business, really, to me. I sort of expect them to go get what they want through their actions, or by, like, I think we said framing it in the positive side better. Like, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy that. I prefer when I like when we come together, instead of pointing at the flaws, because that just feels bad. The pointing at the flaws just feels bad. And then the point and stuff gets missed for me, or in the past it has. And it's not like you just pointed at flaws and were like mean, or it's not like that. But because it started with, here's the things I didn't like, I had to wait for you, and I had, whatever they were, the various things that were not good about the experience were kind of first listed, and there was a few of them. And I'm kind of like, I kind of be like, well, what am I supposed to do about these, like, past things that have already happened, that I didn't know were a problem, that now what are we talking about? Like, so, and I think I even said, so just do what you want. And, or like, so for example, we had talked about, like, we wanted to plan the day better or something. And I'm like, I think I said, like, I think a lot of times when we're, and this is not a criticism of Tassel at all, this is a criticism of humanity. I think a lot of time when we don't like something, we start to tell other people to do stuff differently, or we tell other people how we want stuff, when really we could just do it, like, just change it. And we don't really have to so much tell people what to do or how to be better at whatever it is. And I think if we literally just model it, that's the way to fix it, primarily. That we don't have to express our discomfort with how they are at all. All we have to do is just be what the changes that we see as harmonious. And in that way, we're moving into this sort of more peaceful way of still adjusting, but not having to say, here's your flaw, to people. And I know Tassel wasn't doing that, but I still have trouble grasping, even in this conversation, grasping how it isn't judgment. Like I
Yeah.
can't
So
get past this because I'm like, but
I
you're telling me that what I did is not good, which is judgment. So
so
I get stuck there. So to not get stuck there,
I
I
really
don't know.
agree with what you were saying, that the highest and best way to sort of move through something like this is just the next time learn from what happened the last time and just do things differently. Um, and where I'm still trying to figure it out too is I was stressed and not super happy Saturday night, and you sensed that and you asked me, "Are you upset?" And then I explained what was difficult for me.
Yeah, exactly. I primed you to give me the negatives in a way, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and yeah,
I
exactly.
know. Yeah.
Your word choice, and then you asked me, and I answered your question.
Yep.
And now you're saying you don't like that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
so,
That's a good point.
and when I was going to bed, I didn't really have a plan about anything. I wasn't planning on bringing anything up per se, but you did ask me, "Are you upset?" And then I answered honestly what was hard for me.
Right.
Um, and I do think ideally, to me at least, ideally there's space in a relationship for people to be honest about what they're experiencing,
Hmm.
not to blame the other person, but just to say, "This was hard for me. This is what I experienced."
Yeah,
And
I agree.
to be able to have separate feelings from the other person, that there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe for you it was fine, but for me it wasn't. But I don't think there should be blame that you did something wrong. And I believe I kept repeating that, kept saying, "I'm not saying anyone did anything wrong, just saying that it was hard for me. And maybe my preference would be to partner a bit more than
Yeah,
we did."
the issue was when you're saying you didn't do anything wrong. I'm just agitated and upset, and it's because of what you did, right? Like it's sort of like I
But
don't believe
I
you
don't,
in the
yeah,
moment.
but I don't believe I was saying that. I
No, no,
kept
no.
saying it's a challenging situation. We're moving through it. It's a blended family. There's things to figure out. And this today was pretty difficult for me.
But if we look at the root of like what's going on, like I didn't quite embody what you had as your higher preference for
I,
how we.
I wouldn't say that, because I could have come to you and said, "Hey, can we talk about the day?" I
Yeah.
could have made that. I wasn't saying that you had to do it. I was saying like, I
Either
don't know.
way, either way,
Yeah.
it's all good. I just I think these types of things are difficult because when your partner gets upset, you don't want them to be upset, really. Like you want them to feel better. So you don't want to feel like you're the cause of it as well. That's hard too. So it's just about I think learning how to talk about it, and I think each partnership is going to be a little different too, and how people experience these things. Um,
I think when each partner can really embody the truth that everything that's happening between each other is co-created. It's not like one person is ever creating everything. Everything that happens between us, we are creating together. So there's always like mutual responsibility, basically. Um, we can never blame anybody. It's just we're creating everything together.
yep.
And if we can also embody the truth that situations are challenging, and just come together as a team, and then just be as mindful as we can when we're speaking, to like, "Okay, I had a hard time in this challenging situation. I wonder if maybe we might be able to talk about our preferences of perhaps possibly different ways to move through these types of situations. But like, it's just kind of like backing up. We're creating this together. It was hard. I had a hard time. No one's to blame.
Yeah, no, I think if all of us spend like if we look at what we can do differently first before we start to talk, and I asked, like you said, I asked you to tell me what if you're upset. I could have framed that differently, but you could have also chosen to respond without the negative as well. You could have said, I'm not upset. I had some issues and I'm thinking we could do things better if we do things like this, or I don't know, whatever. I don't want to get too nuanced or like into the I talk about this sometimes, but like prescribing conversations is like it doesn't make sense to me. So like each unique situation has its own context and nuance that needs to be looked at and thought about a little bit. And so yeah, so I'm just thinking if basically if you're upset, I'm probably going to start trying to just shut up and just hear about what you're upset about, and basically just I need to not take it so personally. I need to learn how to do that. um uh, I have trouble with that, where basically I'm taking things personally that aren't necessarily meant to be that way. So if I can do that, then that'll be better, and it'll be easier for me if if the conversation isn't seeming to be focused on areas that I've done poorly, or that's what it seems like to me. And I grew up with lots of friends and people and relationships of just people that complained about just everything, like just constant all the time. And so it's a little bit of a trigger for me when someone is like upset over something that I'm like, can't we just do it better? Like, why does it have to be a whole like upsetness? Why can't we just do it better together? And so I get a little like frustrated by that, because I just feel like humans are like, we cannot be impressed or ever satisfied with anything. And I think
Oh,
it's true. I think it's mostly egoic
I think you and
stuff.
I have been experiencing some of this between us. Like there's some things I have done recently that upset you and vice versa. And I think what I hear you saying and what I also agree with is I think in this more elevated, higher conscious way that we're trying to relate, and sometimes we hit it and sometimes we don't. What I take away is I am free to feel everything within myself. There's no limits. I'm not going to suppress anything. Like, feel everything within yourself. Oh my gosh, like this was horrible. I had a horrible day, whatever. Like, feel free to feel everything within yourself, but be mindful of whatever you communicate, and how you communicate is going to have an effect,
Yeah.
most likely
Well,
on your partner.
and even just your upsetness has an effect, right? That's what
Yes.
we're really noticing too. It's not just what you say. It's like it's obvious, at least for
The
me.
energy,
The
your whole
energy
thing.
changes. Everything changes,
And we've
and
been noticing a lot when one of us goes into fear, how that is so contagious and how the other one can sort of easily jump into fear. So,
yeah, we notice that like Tassel or me will have a little fear, and then it like starts to bloom into this, and it can become a great big thing.
and I think we can just see on a global level that we're all so interconnected, and upsetness or fear in one can create upsetness and fear in others.
Yeah,
And we can see this in the COVID pandemic, everything. So I think what we're really sort of landing on is sort of the more I can tend to my own emotional state and work to bring it back to balance, um, it benefits everyone. And and to just stick to the facts and know that we can do things differently in the future, and just like run through your own upsetness in yourself, I guess, ideally, maybe. Not to say we can't share things with our partner. I think we want to, but the more we can share from a place of centeredness and groundedness, the more grounded and centered the relationship is.
Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is our upsetness is our own responsibility.
Yeah, it is entirely. That's no one else can even actually help us with it. It sometimes we think that we can, and we can get like temporary comforts from others during it, so we can get some assistance, I guess, but not actually with what's upset us. We only get assistance with feeling more comfortable while we're upset, basically. But
And I do think, as a therapist, this is my experience, that people talking out their upsetness and feeling their feelings with someone else can be very helpful.
but they're still doing the work.
But your partner may not always be the ideal person to do that with, particularly if it is something that sort of involves them. Maybe ideally we can hold space no matter what is happening, but I think we're just realizing that, upsetness and just really sort of raw emotion and all that stuff, it usually is better to talk after that has sort of run through your system.
It's also it's very pointless emotion to be upset over something that just happened. There's a purposelessness to it as well, that like the purpose is basically what's kind of happening is the person feels that something didn't go the way that they wanted it to. So what? Like, that's reality. That's what happened. So there's a balance, I think, of like respecting and honoring what comes up, but also noticing that you don't have to do that at all. Nobody has to do that at all. They don't have to have a negative experience because they preferred a different thing to occur. They can just say, I will do better moving forward, and move on. It's not about suppressing feelings. It's about understanding that the idea that wallowing in any pain about it is not beneficial unless you're brand new and you've never been disappointed before and you don't know what it feels like, right? Like Tassel and I were talking about, like, it's fear that you're in about, like, is this going to continue? Like, is this what happened now going to continue? Is everything going to just be this way forever? And these fears come up like that. And then it's like, well, we got to talk about it and fix it. And I'm just saying that we can, of course, talk about it, and people should talk if they want to talk. Like, I'm never ever saying not to, but I am saying there is a balance between like the goal of becoming balanced is to be unswayed by the reality. That's the goal of that's what union is at its truest, more final form in the human body, is a balanced emotional state regardless of what's coming in. And so, like, you can have stuff come in that, like, you don't like, but immediately, instead of looking at all the stuff you didn't like, I find it really helpful to look to the solution. Looking at all the shit doesn't, you're just looking at poop, right? Look to the solution, which there's always a solution. And the solution is to just do it differently next time. Be aware and do it differently. And a lot of times we, I think, want to make sure our partner's like on board with that plan. And then if we approach that while we're in our hurt or fear, they'll feel that too. So even if we're saying, like, it's not your fault, it still comes across like, oh, she's upset with me. Like, it still feels like that. So it's kind of like And a lot of times when you're talking, your word, I don't listen to your words so much as one would imagine. Like, I do listen to the words, I hear what they were, but I'm more feeling it than I am hearing the words so much. Of course, it changes, and sometimes I'm more focused on the words and etc. But so it's almost like if you're upset and you're saying, "Here are the things I'm upset about," and they involve me, I'm like, "Oh, she's upset with me." Like, and it's not because of logic; it's just the feeling. It feels like you're upset with me. I'm not really, you know. Um, but I think the goal is to not be hurt by these. Like, the goal is to be unswayed or to be balanced, even when this thing approaches that isn't exactly comfortable. I think that's the ultimate goal. And I think sometimes, because I'm not sure that I comprehend the problem from Tassel's perspective, like I don't relate to it because I have different perspectives and experience, whatever. And so there's nothing wrong with her having this issue or these issues, but some of them, I don't understand them. And so I'm kind of like, what is even the issue here? Just like, it's because I'm already balanced. And I'm sure there are times when I'm upset about something or whatever, and then Tassel's like, I'm not sure that I see the issue here. So, and that can be frustrating for the person who doesn't see the issue. If they feel like they're being blamed and they don't see the issue, the whole thing just seems like a pointless sort of thing. And so we can come back to honoring the other person and just, like Tassel said, the situation's difficult. Take it out of it, and a lot of it's just dismantling that inner critic that wants to be. It wants ammunition to sling at you. Basically, it wants to hold you down and keep you in fear. So we can help our partners by not supplying that ammunition. If we're more conscious about how we're about to speak, and I should be more conscious as well about like how I'm gonna, if I ask, but I don't know how to pretend like that's what it feels like for me, I guess. If Tassel's upset and like I was coming back into the room or whatever I thought we were gonna watch a movie or we were gonna do something, hang out, and I sort of was like, I don't know how to pretend that she's not over there like kind of stewing in agitation of some kind. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I had an idea and I was right. And I don't know how to ignore it. So the clear answer is to ask, because to pretend seems really weird and gross, and I don't really want to talk about it either because I'm kind of freaked out. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. So it's not the easiest place to navigate for both. There's lots of nuance, and I think just having these types of open conversations about it, not judging each other, just sort of talking and figuring out what works for the other. That each person has a different kind of preference as well. Like I lean more towards just like being inside myself with all of the stuff, and Tassel leads more towards doing that as well, but talking about it and being more expressive with it. And so to me, that type of behavior is a little bit alien. Like it's a little bit strange to me. And so and me not talking about it is strange to her, right? So it's she wants me to talk more, I want her to talk less, right? More or less, because we both have these like we both have these just opposed sort of, they're not opposed, like we're not in conflict about it, but we have these just perspectives that are not the same. They're just different perspectives on the same thing, and it ends up being this sort of intricate or complex sort of dance to properly bring these things up.
Yeah, I think what's really exactly, we are just in a learning stage of what seems to be the highest and best way when there is a upset. And I like to say that we're not going to figure it out unless we keep trying. Like it's going to feel kind of messy and that we don't know quite what we're doing. but it's only through that that we figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Any skill that we currently hold took some practice to get
I
there.
I
Like
also
I just like the metaphor of riding a bike. The first time you ride a bike, likely you fall off. Likely it takes quite a while to masterfully ride a bike. And I think what we're talking about here is, how do we masterfully move through situations where someone might feel hurt or there might be an upset? And I think we're just in the middle of figuring that out, and we're trying out different things. Some of it doesn't feel quite right. And the only way to move through this is to do it and evaluate, and then, oh, maybe I could do this a little bit differently the next time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but like I have memories of not speaking for like as human incarnations, I have memories of like not speaking for 30, 50 years. I have remembrance of being in sixth density, being a light being, and not speaking for millions of years. Like I remember that most of speech is distorted to a degree that it makes it somewhat unpleasant always. Like for me, like that's been my experience, and that I remember these things. Like so when I'm here, I kind of don't want all the talking as much, just because it's like, you could call it like a soul bias maybe. There's like a bias that there's bias that exists in the human personality, but then after there's all further than that, there's a bias and a personality as well that the soul kind of puts on and has like preferences and stuff. And so even at that level, like speaking to me is a bit weird. It's kind of weird that we have to. Like it's, it's I kind of so the only reason I'm saying all this is because it's a some people may resonate with that expression, that like they felt that talking just seems kind of like messy. It's kind of like it's I guess it's kind of like if you were trying to write a letter, but you're writing it in like the wrong language and giving it to someone. Like you can't communicate properly with speech. So it's actually interesting that we even chose to learn that way and not just develop telepathy. And the funny thing is, it's all because we have thumbs. It's these little guys right here that caused us to do that. Because we started to make stuff, tools and stuff, instead of learning how to communicate with each other and move things with our mind and things like that. But anyway, so I think it's important just to really honor where people are at with their beliefs, and then also for each partner to try to maybe lean into the other's side a bit. So if basically I try to, and I hope Tassel knows this, but I try to be more expressive and talk more, and I think I've been doing better at like much better at talking more things out, expressing myself more. So I've been really trying, even though like a large part of me really doesn't want to, like it's not interested really in all of that so much. But on the other side of it, after following that sort of guidance from Tassel and that modeling that she's modeling for me, that doesn't sort of feel supernatural to me. I have seen that after doing that, I usually feel lighter. I move through stuff a little quicker usually, as long as it's not like it doesn't become a confrontation if I say something really rude or, and I'm also realizing that some of the stuff that I say that's pretty like neutral to me, but direct, Tassel's like, ouch, like to her that's like rude or harsh or combative type discussion, and I had no idea really. So anyways, I think it's just really interesting and complex, and we we need to really honor that we, even though we're like in this partnership and we're doing all of this together, there's still very deep, like unique preferences, like soul preferences that like I just tend to prefer to be somewhat isolated. And I'm social. I'm not like introvert and extrovert are nonsense words. They don't mean anything at all, but I tend to be more introspective and more like in my own environment world, because in the past, I think here, other people's worlds were nonsense to me a lot. Like, I don't think people knew what they're doing. And so it just was safer for me, I think, to be just in my own stuff and not really share it. And when I did try to share it, it didn't go well at all. So I just sort of learned that behavior. And so now I'm trying to expand out of that. And so on Tassel's side, where she's expanded out into speaking her truth a lot and being really outspoken with how she's feeling, I think she's being offered an opportunity to just refine on that a little, like, you know. And I think, yeah,
yeah, maybe I can speak to
yeah,
that.
please, yeah.
What I see, and we've talked about this before, is trust the relationship, that the relationship is guiding you to your highest and best. So exactly what you just said, that we maybe naturally were hardwired to be on a little bit of the opposite sides of the spectrum, me being more communicative, you being a bit less. And so to find harmony in our relationship, I can see that, and I think for both of us, that we've been noticing when we communicate when we're really upset, it can have sort of negative outcomes.
Yeah.
So I just really love just coming back to, I'm trusting life, I'm trusting the relationship, I'm trusting that what I experience in the relationship is guiding me to my highest and best.
Mm-hmm.
And I can, as I just said, I can really see that the less I speak from an upset orientation, usually the better it is.
Yeah.
So that's on me. That's on me. Oh, I can see I'm upset right now. This might not be the best time for me to communicate.
And I've been trying to actually communicate when I'm upset, when I normally wouldn't, which has caused other issues. And then I keep saying, like, I shouldn't do this. Like, this is not wise for me to do this. I should be more expressive, but I should move through my upset but I should move through that on my own, because when we're in fear, can I bring up the power versus force consciousness map to just show visually what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So just bear with us, guys, for just 1 second. I just want to show you guys sort of what I mean. Find a good one here.
I was just thinking that, like, upset could just be this red flag for us, that if one of us is even using that word, it's probably best to wait to talk.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Open image, new tab. Perfect. All right, so I'm just gonna take off this logo, and I'm just gonna move this across. So it's just over Tassel and I's face right now, and I'll use my mouse here. But basically, when we're below consciousness level 200, this is from Dr. Hawkins' Power versus Force. Sorry that you can't see it, Tassel, but
no worries.
When you're below 200, so if you're,
I'm upset that I can't see it.
I'm triggered.
I'm triggered.
Ah. When you're below 200 at 199 or below, you're in force, or which is basically based in some type of fear, like some type of lack, or you're based in actually what would be called falsity. You're in some type of lie about yourself or about the world or about whatever. And so when you're in the lie, right? So you're feeling anger or you're feeling pride, like what just happened doesn't respect me properly, or you're having a deep craving, you're worried about your dignity being stomped on or something. These types of things are not possible to occur to the divine self. So these are lies, basically. They're falsity. They're stories of falsity. And when we're in a story of falsity and we start to talk about it, we will express more falsity. Like we're in a lower vibrational consciousness state in that moment, and therefore the thoughts that we call to us, the thoughts that arise in us are going to be lower vibrational thoughts. The like there we may have good thoughts as well, but the what we tend to create out of falsity is more falsity. And so what we want to do is stop that, not stop it like pump the brakes. And I'll bring us back to Tassel, but anything above 200 here is all truth. Truth is pure power, which is infinitely you know, omnipresent, omnipotent, and benevolent, and that's truth. And then force is falsity and lies and fear. And so we need to get out of the fear, basically, before we can. I'm just gonna bring us back to our logo and everything. Thank you guys for looking at that with me, and thank you, Tassel, for letting me show that. I appreciate it. The we can't be loving when we're afraid of stuff. Like, we can't do it. It's not possible. As far as I know, it's not possible to be truly loving. We can say loving things. We can say things that are peaceful and whatever, but we're in a fear state. So the other person, they don't even really hear the love, because it's not a genuine, it's not authentic. It's just trying to correct speech.
I really like that you're pointing so directly to fear here, that underneath upset is some type of fear. And if I think about the past situations where you may have been upset with me, or I may have been upset with you, I really do believe underneath all of that was some type of fear of, like, I won't be heard. What's important to me won't be considered. I'm not valued to this person, that maybe they don't really love me. All of that. It's all
exactly
fear. It's all fear.
It's all nonsense. Because, you know, even if it were true, even if that were true, then it's kind of a good thing to notice. They don't love me.
If that is true, that will be quite apparent once you come back to your groundedness. And if that is true, then you just deal with that.
Then you leave. Yeah.
Right.
If the partner that you're with doesn't care about you and love you, then why are you together? Right. So it's a good thing to know. That's what it means when truth is always benevolent. Like, and we talk about how truth always heals, and that's why it's called the stream of truth. Truth itself can never do any wrong, but it can be uncomfortable at first, but it has a healing type property to it. It's like medicine, maybe, you know?
It is medicine. Truth is medicine.
If you take...
in the short term, it may be uncomfortable. In the long term.
So exactly. And we want to offer our truth with a spoonful of sugar or compassion, but we can't offer truth when we're in fear. We're in falsity and fear. We're not able to actually say the truth because we're in a lie right now.
And
so,
I think what we've also noticed with each other is when one of us is in that state, it doesn't matter what we say. They don't hear it. Yep. It's a huge waste of time. There's no trying to grab somebody and move them out of fear. They have to do it themselves. And so, to me, it seems like the best route is, if somebody's in fear, they need some time.
Can I just use an example that's probably very unconscious, that's between Tassel and I, that just illustrates this really powerfully, I think?
Yeah.
So, like, Tassel could be not saying anything at all, not speaking at all. Almost all the time, Tassel's very touchy, happy, buoyant energy, right? Almost all the time. When she's in fear of some sort and upset about something that's caused fear, or something's happened, a lot of times I'll like reach out and put my hand on her. She won't even like sort of move towards me, or maybe touch back, or like she's pulled away energetically. And And I don't think she's aware necessarily that she's doing that. And I don't think she's doing anything wrong. I'm only trying to illustrate that, like, I'm trying to come towards her to give her love and to show that I'm here and like try to hold her hand. But like, I'll put my hand in hers and like try to squeeze, but she won't even, like, her fingers won't even move. It's like I'm holding a doll or something. And this, again, it's not criticism at all. I do the exact same thing. Like, we're not receptive to love because we're in fear, and in the fear thing, we don't know what love really is in that moment. It's like we've forgotten what we are and what love is for that moment. And so when the person offers it, we like don't receive it. So and the funny thing is that we think that we just want them to offer us more love, but we're not receiving what they're trying to offer anyways. And that doesn't mean that and sometimes she gets afraid and then I get afraid too, and then it just becomes a nightmare sort of for us both. But I'm just trying to highlight that when we're in the fear, it doesn't so much matter what anyone's saying. It doesn't really matter what's going on. So to try to alleviate these concerns at all, we have to sort of stop inviting the fear to sit with us so much, unless we have stuff that really feels important to look at, like, because there's stories there's expectations and things that we can look at and consider adjusting in ourselves, how we frame things. There's a lot of good stuff there to look at, but sometimes it's best to just be like, oh, this is fear and I know it's a lie, so I'm gonna say no thank you, that's not for me. And I think if you just keep doing that, it just dies away. But
yes, I think that we have realized we are at a stage in our relationship. We've known each other now for 2 years, that I think we know we can trust each other. That everything that's come up, we've always moved through it, that we are committed to each other, that we're in this, that we can trust each other, and that we are at a stage where we can say no to fear when it comes up about, like, oh, do they really like me, or is this really going to work out? Earlier in our relationship, or I think any relationship, it probably would be more appropriate to feel these fears as they come up, because but at this point it's sort of the same type of fears that are coming up that we've already really seen, and we don't really need to play with anymore.
Yeah, I think it'll become sort of obvious to the couple and to the people. Like so for me, it's been obvious for me internally that when it's fear, I'm confused. Like, when I'm upset, I'm confused, basically. Being upset about anything is always fear. Even pain on the body is sort of fear expressing physically as well. So it's like caution. It's a sort of a caution sign is what it's meant to be. So like there's and then I started to talk more about things that I was afraid of, because Tassel was modeling this example of being more expressive. And so there was a period in time where that was really useful for us. And I think we're noticing, I'm not sure that there's all that juice there anymore.
Yes, it's super interesting, because I am the feel your feelings one, and you are the apply your wisdom one. And I think at this point, we're realizing the balance of feeling your feelings and applying wisdom. And if the same type of fears are coming up that you realize are really nonsense, I don't think it's necessary to go into them. You can apply the wisdom of, it's not necessary for me to go here. I'm just saying no to this one.
Yeah. I think and it's all really about self-love and self-esteem, to be honest. Like, that's primarily what it all is. Like, if you love yourself enough, then basically whatever's going on, you're fine.
Yes. And sort of getting back to the title of this stream about releasing your inner critic. So I'm just thinking of like two major situations of this. Is like, one is something's happening relationally, and maybe someone is saying things that could be received hurtfully, if we are releasing our inner critic, then we're not going to catch that. It's not going to be activated within us.
Yeah, and can I share the practice that I would like to try? This is what I'm going to basically try to do.
Yeah.
I've done this with other people in the past, but because of this relationship, the way it's been, and the intensity and different things, I've kind of forgotten my way a little.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, you want to be non-attached to their opinion, right? That's what they're talking about with their feelings are opinions on what they've experienced,
Yeah.
right? Like, and if it feels bad, it's the higher self saying you're not seeing yourself properly here.
Yeah.
If it feels good, you're seeing divinity to some degree. So feelings are opinions based on perceptions, and that's all they are. That's their opinions at the root of it, and their preferences and stuff, sort of, or expressions of what preferences are. Like, I love this and don't so much like this, right? At the very base of it. And so we don't have to take that to mean more than that. Like, we don't have to take their feelings and their experience and make it ours as far as it sways us one way or another. They're just telling us their thoughts about things, thoughts and feelings. It doesn't mean, like, it's not our responsibility. And we may not agree. We may not see it the way they see it, but that's all fine. It doesn't matter, basically. It doesn't matter how they feel so much. We care about how they feel, but we're not caring to a place where we want to manipulate how they feel. Basically, I was talking about judgment earlier. We're not judging how they feel. When Tassel expresses a painful thing and I don't like how she said it, I'm just judging her. I'm just going, oh, can you say that differently? Because I don't like it that way. Like, I'm just trying to control the reality, right? It's judgment. What I need to do is let her think and say whatever she wants, and then just be fine with it. Now, the trick to it is to be able to hear where the wisdom is in what they're saying. Like, you don't want to just disregard what they're saying. That would be detachment and avoidance and all these other things. What you want to do is be directly engaged in it, but indifferent to the positive or negative qualities of it. Just, where is the truth here? Is there something I can learn from this too? Is there a way that I can see to be of service somehow? Like, looking at it from that lens instead of like looking at it the other way of like, oh, what did I do wrong? Like, we don't have to look at things that way. So it's a balancing act, and you have to be careful because you don't want to detach. You don't want to not care you care how they feel, but you're not worried about whether they feel this way or that way. It's not your concern to help put them in some type of state. It's not your responsibility, basically.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is somewhat temporary feelings that our partners may be moving through, to be able to discern. They're going through something right now. Likely they're going to land at a different spot, to be able to discern that. I do think there are other types of feelings that are more permanent, or like, this is really how my partner really does feel about this situation, and it's pretty permanent. And this may be something that we want to find harmony with, but there's like different types of states. There's permanent and more ephemeral. And for all of us to be somewhat non-attached to anything ephemeral that is being communicated to us, whether it's good or bad. Like, I love getting compliments. My ego loves it. But I can see that I'm a bit probably too attached to compliments from you or other people too. that obviously we all want to source our self-worth and esteem about ourselves from ourselves. I am the one who I'm sourcing my worth from. No, really, no one else.
Yeah.
There's just so many nuances here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like it's hard to express in words, I think, what I was trying to say. Um and it could be kind of interpreted to sound like, you don't care what they think or you don't care how they feel, but um it's more like you're just aware that it's just not up to you. So whether it's like Tassel said, a more permanent feeling or not, it's not really up to you to you don't have to do anything. You don't have to act and change yourself. They feel how they feel. You can choose to try to do stuff to better align. You don't have to. Um, Now in a harmonious partnership, the goal is probably to try to bend a little here and there, right? And I think that's part of what we start to explore with sovereignty and, how I want to be versus how she wants me to be or would prefer me to be, and vice versa, of course, too. And I think it's a really big thing to just accept them as they are. But then also there's another really big thing about being able to openly discuss ways to do things a little better without people getting hurt, and just, and I think, like we've been saying, is just the best way to do it is to not approach it from fear states. Like when someone's in fear, we need to get out of that, I think, first.
Yeah, and I always say this, that what I really treasure is just to be able to communicate honestly from a non-fear state and a grounded, balanced state, but just to be able to explain what my experience is and what my preferences might be. And then whatever happens after that, I'm not really very attached to. I just want to live in my truth, is what I want. I don't want to pretend. I just don't want to pretend. I want to live in my truth. And then whatever happens after that,
And
on the physical plane, I'm not so attached to.
and if we can do what I was saying, or what we were saying about sort of the situation might be challenging, it's not the people necessarily, right? It's not the people. The people are just basically doing whatever they think is the best. They're, as long as you trust your partner and you're in a harmonious, or work, like you're working together on the relationship as a couple, even whether divine partnership or not, as long as you're in it together, working together to make it as good as it can be, you have to at some point just trust that there's no one to blame. No one's trying to manipulate or hurt, and no one's trying to do these things. We can just trust that our partner is doing their best, and trust that they're here for us, regardless of what I might be seeing. What I'm perceiving is this thing that I don't like, and it could mean that this behavior will continue, and that's freaky because I hate it. And so we don't have to turn it into all that. Excuse me. We can just sort of we can sort of notice it all, feel upset, and then on my side, like, or not on my side, but this is something I'm noticing in myself that I can really improve in, is doing that. It just being like, how she feels is her business. Like, it's her responsibility and business. It's not about me the way it tends to feel. And even if she's saying it's about me, she's wrong. So I can kind of hold it like it doesn't matter really whether she believes it's about me in that moment, because I can know that when she's not in the fear and we can talk about it objectively, she'll see, oh yeah, it's not about you. It's us and the situation. It's not really, so I don't have to worry whether she's really upset with me or just the situation or whatever it is. She's upset and it's okay. And I can just try to hold space for it and not try to, not get upset with what she chooses to say, or, sort of just be a little non-attached, just taking my responsibility out of it. I think that's the key word, is the responsibility. I feel responsible for Tassel's well-being and safety and protection and her happiness, and it's not my responsibility to provide these things. She has to source them from herself. And so I feel bad when I feel like I've failed at these tasks that I'd like to do. And so it makes perfect sense. It's all just well intended, like, personal orientations, but it's the responsibility idea is just totally not, it's not how it works. Like, it doesn't work that way. So whenever we're in that state, feeling like I have to make her feel better, you can't. You can hold space which can help them, aid them in their own recovery. Like, um, another way to think about this is like a Reiki healer, for example. The Reiki healer isn't healing. The Reiki healer is a conduit for the creator to heal. Divinity heals, and divinity heals itself. Itself that forgotten about its divinity. So the healer themselves, people call themselves healers and stuff, and that's fine, but that's not exactly the case. They're acting as conduit or as channel, and that's what's happening when someone's holding space for another person that's expressing their pains and discomfort, whatever it is. The same type of activities happening. The creator in them, and the creator without them, that's kind of expressing divinity into them, is healing them. And you're just helping their mind let go a little, to feel safe to express, to let the feelings flow. And that's what allows the healing to happen. And I'm not actually doing anything. It's all sort of, if anyone's doing anything, it's Tassel. But even she's not really doing anything there. That's more of an illusion too. But the idea just that I can help her be anything is not real. So if I want her to be anything, I can manipulate her into it, or I can try. But that's not fun, right? That's not what we really want. And a lot of times we don't like to admit this, but when I say, oh, maybe next time you should start with the positives, in the that's manipulative. It's, to me. And I said it, like, I'm saying that I was being manipulative. I was judging that the way that she expressed wasn't no bueno, and do it this way because I like it better. And she may agree with me, and but my point is that I'm not accepting just how she is. And that, I think, is the higher goal. Just accept her how she is. If she chooses to start with negativity, if she's in fear, or if I'm in fear and I do that, that's okay. That it's not even really anything to do with me. It's her thing that I can help her with by being present and accepting of it.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is there probably are sort of ideal ways to communicate that make it as easy as possible for the other person. So you can almost like stack the deck.
Yeah.
Like, if I approach it this way, most likely it's going to be the easiest for my partner to move through it with me. But what I hear you saying is, part of what we're also really working is, can I be okay no matter how they are interacting with me? And that is the larger invitation, is to be at peace
regardless,
and hold space and be loving no matter what, to be our God self.
I think that's like self-evident to be the better place than to, when we are trying to get the conversation to go a different way, we are controlling each other. Like, that's what we are doing. We're trying to maneuver each other into pathways of conversation or whatever it is that we find more harmonious. But just because we find it more harmonious doesn't mean that we have this authority to go and try and adjust people. However, I'm only saying this to play sort of devil's advocate to say there's a time to do that and to try that. There's also a time to go, that too is my ego. That too, I don't have to do. That too, I can release and just accept them as they are. So,
Yeah, I think on my side, I would just like to be more masterful on both sides. That's my goal. I would like to
yeah,
be more masterful in how I communicate if something was difficult for me. And I'd like to be more masterful in how I receive your communication if something was difficult for you.
yes.
I would like to just get as good as I
I
can
think
on both sides.
both of us too are so nerdy about this stuff, like so deep, geeky into it. Like we're obsessed with this is pretty much, I think, all not all we talk about, but like we work a lot. Even when we're not working, we're talking these types of things out, these deep nuances.
Yeah, a
We're
lot
kind
of
of the perfect match for this work that we're doing, which
yeah.
is not surprising. But they, we get really into it and very specific about it all, and because I think we're meant to be doing what we're doing and talking this all out publicly, um, and I just think that like it's always a balance. There's always a balance to be had between like and there's a deep importance of recognizing when the ego is doing its thing. Even if it's very innocent or light, it's still important. Like when we're just trying to be in harmony and the way that my partner's talking isn't quite, it's hurting me, it's feeling bad. Our go-to is, well, let's adjust. But I'm saying the higher order is to accept and surrender and to be okay with it because it doesn't mean the fearful things it seems to mean. It doesn't mean that you're not that you have no value. It doesn't mean that you're not respected. It doesn't mean these things. That's to me sort of the next step, but it's hard to get there. Like it's just I'm able to be there for a bunch of stuff, so I know that it's a better place, but I'm not there for everything. So like our triggers, that's why we move through them, right? And heal them and all that. So um yeah, I think it's really good. And really all of that is just releasing that inner critic, that part of us that wants to complain about ourselves or the reality, but often it's mostly about ourselves. And even if it's not about ourselves, if it's about the reality is just a projection of us. So we don't know this, and that's what judge not lest you be judged means. When you judge anything, you are judging yourself. There's no separation, truly. The separation's an illusion. So when you judge anyone, it will come back to you and feel bad somehow. And usually it's because it feels bad in the moment because you're judging them and you're going, why would they be how they're being? Because I wouldn't be that way, or I have the capacity to, I'm just denying it right now. I'm denying rage. I'm denying anger I'm denying my callousness. I'm denying some of these egoic traits that I have. I know that they're there. I've seen them come out in me, and I've tried not to embody them anymore and made them into a shadow. So, like, we don't have to do all that, I think, and at least I think that's where we're starting to get to is like when and this is we're gonna learn this too. When is it appropriate to talk? I think we've made big headways just by saying, excuse me, maybe we should wait till we're not in fear. Like, and I almost think it might be best, and this I don't know how you think about this, but it might be best literally for each of us to just go do our separate thing for a bit. Like, you know, and it's kind of hard when we're together in the house, but like maybe if I feel like crap, I go have a bath, or like we or something, or you go for a walk, or like I don't know,
Yeah,
we just do
I
our own thing to come
I
out of it,
I
and
agree.
then we talk about it maybe.
I agree. The
Um,
The most uncomfortable interactions have just been when we haven't done that. So I think we've seen
Yeah.
the repercussions that happen if we are in upset.
Yeah, I think if we just like spend some time to contemplate on it as well,
Yeah.
like feel the feelings, contemplate like why do I feel this way? Almost always we're going to get to a root of like, oh, I'm afraid of this or this. And we can go, that's kind of silly to be afraid
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Um I don't need to do that, and then we can correct
Absolutely.
it. But obviously, you know, because I'm just thinking like, because if we're together and you feel like you're in a funk, but I guess, like I said, I need to learn how to accept that too. So like even me saying we should separate, and like that's a little bit avoidant, right? Like, oh, when she's upset she goes off on her own, so I don't have to feel it,
I think the
right? It's
point
so I'm not sure.
is to not necessarily need any particular way to handle it, that no matter how it's being handled, we could be okay with it and be in our God self. That would be the ultimate goal, I think. Um, I do also think it's great to just recognize where we are, that we might not always be in our God self. And so at this point in time, it might be highest and best to take some time. I think we're just figuring it all out. And
Oh yeah.
um, yeah, and we're very nerdy about it.
Like you said, it is kind of obviously best to just figure it out, or to just be okay regardless. Like, I guess the person just has to decide, like, am I upset enough that I should take some space, or what's going on? Like, am I gonna kind of be a little bit of a little off standoffish a little to
I think
them?
the question we could always ask ourselves, if we're able to be aware enough to ask this, is what I'm about to communicate going to serve us ultimately or not? Like, to me, that feels really helpful. And
Yeah.
that's like a great check. Like, is this going to help us or not help us?
And I
What I'm
think
trying to
a
say.
lot of men too, I could be wrong, but a lot of men I think we can feel a lot of like, I don't have to hear about all the problems. I'd much rather just hear what the preferences are, what the solutions are. Like,
Yeah.
what can I do to make it better going forward? That stuff happened. Like, I'd
Yeah,
be,
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. I'd rather you just say, "Oh, Tassel, could you maybe do this instead of what you did that hurt me?" And I'd be like, "Sure, I would love to."
yeah, but I think I'm not comfortable doing that either. Like, for me, I just feel like that's trying to control people. So I like, for me, and so it's so I don't really do that as much either. Like, I do a little bit, and I've been trying to be more expressive with what I want, what I prefer. It's an expansion for me to even talk about any of those things. But I'm not sure that that's the right type of expansion for me personally. That, I think part of what I'm meant to do is just let it be as it is, and just, it's fine. Even if Sean is kind of like, I don't like it, it's still fine. I just I think that's for me, I think, is my kind of orientation to it. Because every time I talk about what I prefer and it's not being met or whatever it is, I feel bad. I just feel bad, and it makes things bad. It doesn't do any good from what I've watched. I've not seen any, like, good has come out of it, from insight and expansion between us, and like, so that there's lessons there, but nothing about the actual situation itself matters really. I'm just sort of putting myself into a bad energy for no reason, to me. So I'm yeah, I'm not sure, but either way, I think we're learning that acceptance, forgiveness, surrender.
Faith, release the fear. Yeah,
Yeah.
these are all helpful orientations.
Oh, that's about an hour and a half. We should probably
Yeah. Okay.
close
So
it
thank
off.
you so much for joining us. if this resonated with you, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel. And we have an amazing Patreon community, and there's description about it below. And just thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.